Welcome to this JavaScript series. I hope you're excited to get started and learn about JavaScript. My name is Bonaventure Ogeto, and I'll be walking you through the entire JavaScript series. And here we're going to basically learn the core of vanilla JavaScript. What is vanilla JavaScript really, and how it runs a lot of the websites and applications that we use on our day-to-day basis. But before we get there, we need to do an installation of a number of materials and a number of tools that we need for us to run through this series effectively. So first, JavaScript in itself. JavaScript is a programming language, and we use it to add interactivity to our website. So whenever you go to our website, there are certain aspects of it that are a bit more interactive, right? So for example, you can just click on something. For example, here I click here, and you see the pop-up that has already come here. That is as a result of JavaScript. So any sort of interactivity that you see on our website is as a result of JavaScript. Now, if you'd like to learn HTML and CSS as well, we do have an introductory series on that. Just check it out in the playlist section of this channel. But in this series, we'll mainly only focus on understanding the core of JavaScript. So we're not going to integrate HTML into it, but later on, we're going to, after we are done with the series, we'll start looking at the DOM and how to manipulate the DOM basically. And during that time is when we look at JavaScript. But for now, without wasting much time, let me walk you through a number of things that we need. So the first thing that we need to install is Visual Studio Code if you haven't installed it already. So to do that, you'll go to this site, Visual Studio code.visualstudiocode.com. I'm going to just have all the links in the description below. Then you'll just go through here. Depending on the kind of machine that you're using, you're going to install a version that is related to that. So if you're using a Mac, you can also click here on Mac, and it will give you the installation process for Mac here. If you're using a Linux system like myself, you'll come here as well. You see the installation process that is there. And if you're using a Windows machine, you'll also go through the installation process that is right here. Now, I don't want to waste much time in just going through the entire installation, but if you follow through everything that is here, all the steps that are involved here, you should be good to get started. Also, just feel free to check out the HTML series, and even we have the way you can install Visual Studio Code, just briefly explained right there. Now, once you have Visual Studio Code installed in your machine, this is what Visual Studio Code will look like. So this is my Visual Studio Code. We're going to circle back into this later on. Now, the main thing that we need to install here is Node.js. Like I mentioned, you need to, in this series, we're not going to basically interact with the DOM or integrate HTML. We'll just purely look at JavaScript. And to do that, we need Node.js. So we'll be running JavaScript with Node.js in our machines. Now, the basic thing that we can do for you to learn how to install these things is just to Google how to install Node.js, and you're going to see a number of articles that are going to show you here on how you can install. Even Gemini is going to show you a number of the installation process that you need to go through. Now, keep in mind that in programming in general, this is something that is expected of you to go a mile further to try and figure out things on your own. But I'll be here to guide you through in case you get stuck at any point. Now, to install what you need, you'll go to nodejs.org. I'm also going to have the link below, or you can just search nodejs.org, and then it brings you to this window page that you saw when you are starting out. Then once you get there, you'll see, like it tells you here, Node.js is a free open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment that lets developers create servers, web applications, and command line tools and scripts. And this is now how you can install it, and it basically you can use it to run JavaScript everywhere. Now, if you also go through this site as well, this is just if you click on the download section here, it brings you to this part, and this is where you basically pick the specific operating system that you're using. Now, the good thing about this is that it's going to automatically pick up the operating system that you use, and you can just follow that installation process. So in this case, I'm using a Linux. As you can see, it picked up on that. There's also all these options. We're using AIX. If you're using Mac OS, if you're using Windows, it also shows you different installation processes because these are different distributions. They have different installation processes. But the basic thing that you can do as well, you just come here to the window page, the first thing that you see, then click on download. Now, when you're downloading the multiple versions of Node that you're going to find. You'll see there are the older versions and the newer versions, but I recommend that you install the LTS version, which is also the one that they recommend for you here. LTS stands for long-term support. Basically what this means is that this specific version of Node that you're going to use is going to be supported, or rather has long-term support. I don't know if I've explained much there, but so you click on installing here. You just click on install, and it's going to start download. As you can see, it is already downloading on my end. And again, I already have it installed in my machine. So in my case, I don't have to worry about going through the installation. But you just download it. As you can see, it's pretty fast. Also depends on the speed of your internet as well. Then once you have installed it, if you're on Windows machine, just follow the basic installation processes. But you can also use PowerShell to install this. So what I've shown you here is basically just download it to your machine. Then it goes to your downloads folder, and then you can double click and just follow the basic prompts that it gives you there. But the other thing you can do is just run it through the PowerShell. Now, the PowerShell is, if you're on a Windows, or rather if you're on a Linux or on a Mac OS, it is basically like the terminal. And if you've already installed, assuming you've already installed Visual Studio Code, if you pull up the terminal, now there are multiple ways I can pull up the terminal. I can just drag it from down below like that. Or I can go to, at this point here, the top left side. I click on this, and I can also go to terminal and open new terminal. So whenever you open a new terminal, depending on the kind of, let me just delete one of this. If you come to this side here, it shows you multiple options that you have, right? Now in my case, it shows me that I have bash, I have zsh, then I have just the basic terminal and everything that I'm using. But if you're on a Windows machine, you'll have a PowerShell option here. So you can just go through that and install it. The other option for you is to just go through, use the simple terminal that is available on Windows to do the installation, and then you will run these commands there. So start with this first command, and then the second, third, and everything. So that is the simple installation process. Again, if you do feel stuck at any point while doing this, just comment below. I'll be checking the comments to guide you through in case you get stuck at any point. Once you have this installation done, the next step for you now is to check whether you've installed the right version in your machine. Now, given that I've already installed mine, what I'll do is I'll just open my usual terminal. This is what my terminal looks like. And do note that the terminals look differently depending on the kind of operating system that you're using and the specific terminal that you've sort of decided to use. But it is the other way to just not get lost. Just use the Visual Studio Code terminal. It's already available there for free for you. So to check the version of Node.js, there's this command that is available here: node space hyphen v. So if I do this, I just say node space hyphen v, then you see it tells me that I'm using version 23, right? Now, note that version 23 is a bit of a later version than the LTS version, but it's still okay. So, but again, like I said, I recommend you using the LTS or even the current ones. But LTS again has long-term support, which is pretty cool as well. But when you're going to run everything, there's not going to be any difference really on how I run my code and how you run your code. Now, once you've installed this, the other thing you need to check out is the npm version that you've installed. So npm stands for Node Package Manager. Right? And this is we don't really need this at the moment, but we're going to need it later on when you start working with JavaScript libraries, and you're going to understand what they are. But think of a library as a tool that has been built using the vanilla JavaScript that you're going to learn, that makes it easier for you to carry out certain processes without having to write the raw JavaScript yourself. But you're going to understand that later on. But this is also going to be installed, and you can also just check npm hyphen v to see the version that you have. In this case, I have version 10.9.2, which is the same as this one here. But this is the basic installation process. I do hope that this has been clear on how you need to install your Node.js and your Visual Studio Code, right? Again, in case you're worried about maybe messing a few things up, or whenever you're writing or you're trying to install, you face some challenges. It can be quite frustrating at times. If you feel any of that, just know that it's pretty normal. As you're going to learn some of these things as we go, Well, I can't promise you that everything is going to be sort of straightforward or easy to understand at the first time you look at the specific concept, but it takes a lot of practice. It takes some practice before you get everything right. So at any point you feel that you're stuck, you feel that you're not making any progress, I want you to know that for you to learn this JavaScript and fully understand it, it's going to require you to do some practice, right? And I'm going to be giving you some projects to help you in practicing this. But at the end, I'm pretty confident that you're going to be at a position where you can comfortably use JavaScript to build your applications, and then start looking at some of the other JavaScript libraries and frameworks that are going to study later on. So that being said, I'd like us to go and switch back to Visual Studio Code. Like I mentioned, in Visual Studio Code, there's a number of things that we need, right? So for now, I'm going to just clear this terminal and just close it down, just like that. The reason I'm taking us back here to Visual Studio Code is, first we need to we need to learn how to create files in JavaScript files. And then on top of that, there's a number of extensions that are going to need that are going to help us make, or rather they're going to help make our work a lot easier as we're learning JavaScript. So to help us do that, the first thing I'm going to show is how to create a new file. So to create a new file, there's these two icons that are going to see right next to your folder name. There's the one that says new file, the other one that says new folder. So of course, obviously, if you want to create a new file, just click on new file. Then you create a file that you want, right? So if I want to create a file, and let's say the file that I want to create is called intro.js. So because it is JavaScript, it has the .js extension. Then I hit enter. As you can see, it opens it up here, and I'm going to just disable the completions for this one so that we're good to go. So you have the .js. You will see the JS sort of icon here on the side for you as well. Now, the other thing that you need before you even do this is you need to have a folder in your machine, and that folder is going to be the folder where you're going to dedicate all the JavaScript code to. So create a folder in, let's say in your desktop. I recommend maybe in your desktop folder. Create a folder and call it JavaScript programming or web development. Just call it JavaScript maybe, then, or a name that best suits you. And then inside of that folder is you are going to be creating everything. Now, once you create the folder, you can be able to open that folder through Visual Studio Code, right? Now, what you do is, just to show you that quickly, once you've opened your Visual Studio Code, but you want to make sure that your work is in the right folder, you'll go to File, then there's this part that says Open Folder. So you'll click on Open Folder, and then it will allow you to navigate through your machine, right? So you just navigate through the folders that you have until you get to the right folder. In my case, this is the folder that I'm using, that I've called code here. Then you click on that folder and you select. Then what you will see is that in my case, because it has already opened on that specific folder, so there's not much of a change that happens really, but it's going to open the right folder on Visual Studio Code. Then you can start writing your code. One of the common questions that I've always received here is, where does my file or my changes go to once I've written my code or anything that I want to write? The moment let's start by writing our first JavaScript code, just to test these things out that we've already done so far. So what you do is, I'm going to use what we refer to as the console. So let me just type it. You just say console.log. Now the console is where we're going to view our JavaScript, the output of our code. So I'll just say console.log. Then I'll have a set of parentheses. Then I have speech marks. And then I'll type in some statements. So I can say, welcome to this JavaScript. I need an I here, JavaScript programming series. So I'll say something like this. And then you'll see that there's a white dot. Whenever you see this, it means that you haven't saved the changes you've made to your file. So I hit save. So whenever I hit save, again with Control S, or Command S, that is going to save these changes directly to your file. So you don't need to do anything else really. As long as you're within the right file, once you save anything, all these changes are going to be available. Even if you close down your Visual Studio Code and open it up again, it's still going to have all the changes that you've made there as long as you saved them. Now, once you have this, the other question that comes here is, now, how do I run this code? Now, this is why we installed Node.js. Like I mentioned, we're going to use Node.js to run our code. So what you do is for some of you, depending on the kind of view that you have on your machine and the size of your screen also, you will automatically see the terminal as a button that you can click on here. But you can also go to the more options there, and then go to terminal, open new terminal. So you can open a new terminal like that, or you can just drag it from the bottom like that, like I showed you earlier. So let me just close one of this, then you can use this one. So what you do and how you run your code is you just say node. And again, this year you have to make sure that you're within the right folder, which I believe everyone is already, where you have your file already named. So you type node, then space, followed by the name of the file. So in this case, I call this file intro.js. Should be a dot. Intro.js. And if I hit enter on this one, you will see that it automatically prints this statement: welcome to this JavaScript programming series. And that is basically what happens. And this is how we're going to be writing our JavaScript code throughout and viewing everything within the terminal. So everything that we write, we'll be viewing it within the terminal, within our Visual Studio Code. Everything is going to be good there. Now that we have mentioned that, the other thing that I want us to do, just these are now additions that you add to just make your experience with the Visual Studio Code a lot easier as well, and it's going to help in a lot of other things later on. There are a number of extensions that I recommend we install on our Visual Studio Code. So to understand extensions, here you'll see this icon on your left panel that says extensions. You just click on that. Then you can start. Let me just restart this extension. I have so many extensions installed. That's why I need to restart sometimes. But anyway, so you'll come to the search here, and then you start installing a number of extensions. One of the extensions that I recommend that you install in your machine is an extension that is known as ESLint. So I'm going to just type in ESLint like that. And then it's going to show up, of course. And you can see ESLint is here. I've already installed it, but this is, you're going to see it has 43 million downloads. This is the one. Install it in your machine. The good thing with ESLint is that it helps highlight any syntax errors that you have in your machine. So syntax error in your code, syntax errors, the errors that you make when you don't follow the right JavaScript rules that you're supposed to follow. So JavaScript has a number of rules that you have to follow for you to write it correctly, which you're going to look at. And the ESLint helps you pick those errors whenever they occur. And then it also just helps enforce a consistent style on your code, so they don't write code that is, the styles are all over the place. So we're going to use this, and we're going to see what it's going to help us with later. You'll see how it highlights errors really. Now, once you've installed ESLint, the other one that you need is you'll just click on install. In my case, I've installed it, but you can see that. The other thing you need to install is, it's called Prettier. So Prettier, like that. And Prettier as well, this Prettier code formatter, this one that you can see here, this Prettier, it also has 58 million downloads. We use this to auto format our code, right? So whenever you save your code, like I've mentioned about the rules that JavaScript has and the consistency in terms of how you style your code. Let me just close down the terminal for now. And how you write your code basically. uh, Prettier helps basically align your code with these styles. It's basically auto formats your code. So whenever you save, it's going to auto format it and make sure that it follows the same formatting rules that you need to follow basically. So you can see here as well. This is okay. This is just some more notes on how Prettier works and everything. But we're going to see this as well. Whenever you save your code, it's going to format your code correctly. That's what it does. Now, apart from this Prettier, the other thing that you need is live server. Now, live server is, we're going to need this later on when you start looking at the DOM, but you also need this. If you've already looked at the HTML CSS series, you already have live server installed. So this live server, It's also good for you, but we're not going to need it in JavaScript. We'll need it only in HTML. The other one is known as npm IntelliSense. Let me just type here npm intel. There should be double L npm IntelliSense. And what npm, I also don't have it installed in my machine, but what npm IntelliSense helps you do is that it auto completes certain things that you do. So whenever you do, we're going to look at modules at some point once you're done with the foundations of JavaScript. But these are basically, think of them as external tools or libraries that have been created that you need to make your work a lot easier, right? So you don't have to basically write the implementation of certain aspects from scratch. And this IntelliSense helps autocomplete that. So I'm just going to install this as well. Again, we're going to need at some point. So I'll just say trust publisher and install. Then we'll let it there. Again, not this one has 10 million downloads, so install that one. Then there are many others that you need. I think I'm going to mention probably two as well. There's so many of these extensions really, and some of them are going to make more sense later on. The other one is ES6. So these I'll just type in ES6, and it's called JavaScript ES6 code snippets. What this does is that it provides some boilerplate templates that you're going to need to allow you to basically autocomplete certain aspects of your code. We're going to learn a lot of these things in JavaScript, and we're going to see how it basically helps enforce this sort of completions, right? So it provides you just basically the code snippets, which you're going to see later on and what they are. And I'm going to just leave it here. I don't want to overwhelm you with so many extensions. You're probably already overwhelmed by this, but that is basically all that you need. Again, note that these extensions are just there to make work a lot easier for you. So you don't really need to install all of them, but it's important to just install so that later on they just make your work a lot more easier for you for you as well. So I think probably the other one, this is just, we're going to also need it later on, but it's called bubble JavaScript. And this one here, it does syntax highlighting in your JavaScript. So as you can see here, you can just see the basic highlights that are shown here. So this just syntax highlighting, and then it gives you like a really nice theme to see your code in so many different colors there as well. So I also recommend installing this. It's just good for you. Just it makes some things a lot more pretty in highlighting just the basic syntax in your code. So I also recommend installing this Bubble JavaScript. Okay, I promise that is the last one that I'm going to install for now. Now, once you've done that, then you're good to get started. Now, like I mentioned earlier on, as you're learning JavaScript, just I want you to be open to a lot of things changing as we go along the way, and in terms of how it's going to challenge you, right? In case you feel overwhelmed at some point, just take a 5-10 minute break and then come back again, and then just, try to go through it as well. And with time, as you just practice more, you're able to understand these things. Now, the other thing that I recommend for you to do is do not just watch this as a movie, right? I recommend that you code along with everything that I'm doing so that you're able to get the more value out of this video. So just code along with everything that I'm doing. And the other thing that I also need to stress a lot on is, please make sure that you have a piece of paper and a pen, or a book and a pen by your side as well, so that you can be taking some notes, because there are a lot of things that I'm going to be mentioning. I'm not going to be preparing slides because I believe they're just going to waste a lot of time as we go. So everything I'm going to mention is going to be within Visual Studio Code. So you also need to just take some notes. At any point, feel free to just pause, then also just go back and try to replace certain sections to understand fully what I'm talking about. But please take some notes so that they just help you along the way. If you need to refer back to something, you can easily refer through your notes instead of going and watching an entire video again. So that is all I recommend. But thank you for joining. Welcome along on this journey. I'm looking forward to seeing how much growth you're going to have over the next few weeks as you're going to learn JavaScript. And all the best. Happy coding. Let's get started.